You are not good. Let me say that again. Let me say it slower. Let me say it nice and slow so everyone can understand that. You are not good. This is especially true if you play top tier sim because, damn, is the average player practically lobotomized? Like, no, seriously, like, look at the shit. Would you just look at it? Look at all the neuron activation. The combined brain power of an entire top tier sim lobby is, like, not even enough to produce static electricity. Your own team is oftentimes a larger threat to you than the enemy team. I would say that on average, a whole 30 to 40% of my player contributed deaths are from team kills. Some of these are legitimate. Sometimes, like IFF does fuck up sometimes. Sometimes IR missiles go where they shouldn't. Sometimes players make a risky bet when checking. Shit happens, but shit shouldn't happen at this scale that it does at top tier. But it does, and why? Where do all of these specimens come from? Why are things the way that they are? Well, it's because a majority of players that meet in top tier, and especially in sim, they are there because they grinded to it. And because that is the game mode that they thought that they wanted to play. And during their whole entire grind process, they never actually pick up any basic skills that actually help with actually playing the damn game. I have like a guilty pleasure. It's not even really guilty, I'm just an asshole. I put more thought into what it means to be good at the WarThunder game, and the concept of good can have many variations. For a lot of people, it boils down to purely to kill to death ratios. This was something that was like really prevalent in ARB back when I played it a lot more than I do now. And I went through great lengths to prove like what good actually is, and that it goes far beyond kill to death ratio, because at the end of the day, good KD can be farmed, it can be replicated, and it's not necessarily all that hard to do. There are plenty of players out there that have a much higher KD than their skill level would lead you to believe. This can easily be replicated by playing in a squad or playing like only the best plane and then playing incredibly safe, i.e. the only third-party guys that are stalled out and you lurk really just next to your airfield. Part of the reason I have a 40-1 KD in the FW190.9 isn't because I'm the Mike Tyson of the skies. That is another guy, I swear to God. But rather, I just exploited all of the mechanics that are present in the game. It's also the same reason that Free Palestine was the third from the top as far as ARB overall win rate before that account was deleted by Gaijin. Apparently, Free Palestine in being only flying the Jewish Spitfire, that became really controversial in the last like 6 to 9 months. I don't really know why. I'm not following the news. Because at the end of the day, the reason I did this is because these players are also like one of the most insufferable audience of WarThunder. They look at KD or the win rate number to the point that they engineer their whole entire gameplay to satiate basically a scorecard. And I've seen some weird shit when it comes to padding stats. A few years ago, they had a video up where I showed a guy that went like 198 to 0 in the XP50. And it was funny because he would queue up a game, and if it wasn't a full down tier, he wouldn't spawn in, he would just leave. And if you just leave the game, you don't have a death counted against you, nothing counts, doesn't count you as being in the game. If there was too many bombers in the game, he just wouldn't spawn. And this is at a time when the XP50 was 3.7 battle rating, so he was playing one of the most busted planes in the game only in a full down tier and when the team composition suited him. And even then, when he played it, the only targets he would go for were basically dudes that were just like stalled out or third partying, and if he got even to like the mildest form of a positional disadvantage or even like positional parity, like a guy got to the same altitude that he was at, he'd leg it straight to his airfield. It was always really fun to watch because you would see some of the most schizophrenic possible gameplay. This guy somehow managed to have like a 5-1 KD in the MiG-15 when it was top tier with winning less than 40% of games. This is like at a time when just flying face first in the enemy team and just doing something would probably net you a 50% win rate. His actual gameplay ended up taking place pretty much right next to his airfield. Like if he wasn't third-partying someone, he would sit near the airfield and the guy would come attack him and you would use the airfield to get him to break off. And then like another hood classic is this German boomer named von Schlesien. And this guy almost plays exclusively 4.0 and lower planes. I used to have a video where he ventured outside of his comfort zone, played 5.0 or 6.0 or something. I ended up killing like a couple of squad mates. And this guy comes into third party a dogfight. And he starts behind me. He's in like a Key 83 or something. And he has a shot. Like I'm right there. I'm like literally just right in front of him. But because I killed the guy in front of me, he makes an immediate U-turn towards his airfield. Keep in mind, he's not actually near his airfield, so he came out of it and he gives me a 6, and then he smashes into the ground while he's trying to run away. Keep in mind, he was like already behind me. He had guns on. He had energy for days. He came in with a Key 83 from space. Like, he could have just like looped over and over and been fine, and he basically killed himself. And these are the kind of people that put a lot of stake into their kill to death ratios. That's why I don't spend a lot of time on it. But at the same time, I think a decent player should be able to produce above average stats while playing organically. Basically, like, you know, you play a wide variety of lanes, you kind of do the things that you would expect normal players to do, and you don't do any of like the super cringe stat pattern shit. And cringe stat pattern shit is like, it's super easy to detect too, because you can go through people's replays. And checking the tapes, checking the replays is a really good way to debunk a lot of claims that people make about like their kill to death ratio, and a lot of ways to debunk like how they actually play the game. Because when you watch someone play the game, you can kind of like peer into a little bit of what they're thinking. So why do I go through the great lengths to talk about skill? Well, in short, it has a direct and readily noticeable impact on the way that I enjoy the game, and it has a direct impact on the way that other people enjoy and have to play the game because of the way the battle rating system works, because it's based on de facto median player performance. You end up with a lot of really weird situations where things like the F4U Corsair, the Dash 4, the 1944-45 one, it's all the way down at 4.3, even though the plane has the performance and even has like good ergonomics to be like a really strong fighter, all the way up to 5.0. And this is how we end up with things that are like the RE 2005, which is basically a slightly worse F Mark 9 4.3 Spitfire that just has a lot of guns. It's all the way up to 5.7 BR at the time of this video. And then you get Giga Chad head-on mobiles like the TA-152C, which are performance-wise are ass. It's not a very good plane, but it's up at 6.0 because presumably you can go in and the average player will perform better just because consistently you can maybe probably head on a bomber or head on another player, and that will bump the stats up just enough. And here's the problem. The average player is bad at the game because they have to grind out the game first. And this is especially true for top tier because they're never really learning how to play it. And because guys aren't stopping to learn how to play it, the game is kind of getting worse. Bombing bases and something like the F4S or full committing to head-ons, so the first target you see doesn't teach the game. But because all of these people have time invested, and by the time they get to top tier, it will surely feel like they have actually learned something. And the thing is, at the end of the day, even the worst player will luck into a 4 or 5 kill game on occasion. And because they have a time invested, and selective memory is a bitch, that means that everyone, no matter what, feels like they're above the average. Seriously, go to a Discord, find someone who claims to average 3 kills per battle. Guess what? They usually don't. Usually you go back, you check their averages, you check the replays, and more often than not, their kills per battle is usually around 1. Now, unfortunately, being bad doesn't keep people from voicing their opinions. And most of these opinions end up being hot fucking dog shit. Seriously, we could just take a look at the forums, and I could make a whole series on this is the hot dog shit take of the week. Like, we got some real stinkers right now kind of up there. Like, basically, the F5C is no longer good in air RB. The whole argument that Rico is making is that there's other 10-3s that are competitive against it, and that makes it bad. But he's a good player because he has a 3 KD and kind of like one of the easiest planes to fly in the game. At the same time, we have like another topic, like we need to remove the R27ER from the game, and people are saying that it avoids multipathing, that it doesn't, you know, hit the ground if you fly low. It's also not the case. And then we got like another one, like another guy saying, hey, we need to remove the TA-152H air spawn. Why? Because it's OP, because a plane that is slower than all of the American stuff and climbs worse and turns better makes it OP. Like that's the kind of hot dog shit takes that we have, and these are pretty damn common. And all of these like abysmal takes usually amount to X thing killed me, therefore it's OP. Shit, 2/3 of the complaints about my national bias, whatever it is, my Russian bias, my English bias, my American bias, most of that shit ends up being, I don't like the fact that another player was able to click on me. And most of these hot dog shit takes are made by players that are just simply not good. Like, you can look at some of the background footage here, like, I'm in a MiG-29. This plane is way past its prime. The flight model has been changed. Its maneuverability is not really all that exceptional. And I'm still able to easily gun down basically our average US top tier sim player, because go up, hold a little bit of speed, and their whole entire universal flight plan is more or less hold the stick back and run themselves out of energy with not a care in the world. There's been a couple times, and I think in the background, that I've locked a guy with radar. He flared a missile and then just like immediately forgets that I'm even there. This guy comes in, does the same thing. It's pretty much the same guy. And the thing is, this is not uncommon. Like, you're going to get team killed at top tier, and it's just rather frustrating, because it's hard to actually voice any kind of like seemingly legitimate complaint, because it always just seems like it's coping. Like, every plane that I'm killing with the MiG-29 right now has the capability to just absolutely trounce it in a dogfight. But what you see in the background is like, there's no brain power here. Like, it just doesn't exist. All these guys basically spammed bombers to get to top tier as soon as they could, and they're no more competent than your average level 15 biplane player. Like the F-14, he got himself slowed really quickly. We get hit. This guy that just hit us, he's gonna like fuck off somewhere. Maybe he's gonna get engaged or something. But we got a Gripen in front of us, and what's the Gripen gonna do? Well, he knows that we're here. We're flaring, we're locking, and he's gonna flare in time. Like, he obviously sees the missile, and what's he gonna do? He's just gonna kind of mindlessly flat turn and not even make an attempt to use this plane. And the thing is, like, the Gripen flight model was changed, but I've tested it again, and it's still the best thing in the game, but the margins are slightly smaller, to the point that maybe a good F-16A is competitive. At the same time, I'm not struggling with these guys. Like, I'm just holding speed. Like, you can just take a 29 and you hold speed and wait. The other guy is going to basically throw himself in front of you, and this is what this guy does. He just runs himself out of speed, throws himself in front of me, and just hold down the trigger. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? How are you supposed to improve from that? It's like, well, he can improve by like learning to play the game. We got an F-16 behind us here. This guy was already behind us, and he like somehow like splits off and is going in some weird direction. And he comes into a dogfight. He's got at least 2 external fuel tanks on. And the question is like, why? What are you expecting to accomplish with the heaviest F-16 and then loading extra fuel in a map that's like relatively small? Like, he's not going for ground targets, or he wasn't before. And it's not until he's already been on fire that he thinks, hey, maybe I should jettison these wing tanks that I didn't need to take. And I guarantee you, like, this dude is probably running full fuel. There's no reason to do that. There's no thought process there. And I'm right here. He's going to hit the ground. And for whatever reason, this whole entire engagement, I am outnumbered. I think we have 2 to 4. And it somehow works out. Like, I can't explain it. Like, my mind is gone. And this is one of the things I don't enjoy about top tiers. Like, most of your fights are not very good. And when you have, like, the bad players on your team, or you get too many of them, it does feel rather hopeless. At the same time, like, I can't make honest content and tell you how to make this plane work really good when basically having the brain power to produce static electricity is all you really need. This F-14, basically as soon as the BVR missile doesn't hit, he just lead turns in front. And look at this, he's like basically stalled out already. Like, he just basically full pulled in front of me, and that was it. Like, how are you this dumb? Like, I don't know. I don't understand. Like, presumably you have some kind of interest in aerial combat to want to get to top tier. Presumably most people probably consume some form of, like, how to play the game content, at least, like, you know, and, like, the 40 to 50 hours it takes to get to top tier. There's none of that. There's none of that in Sim. Like, there's no signs of brain activation in most of the players that play this, because most of the players that play this they're not Sim players. They're usually RB players looking to dabble in. And, like, I get it, because I did top tier. I played top tier before I played props and Sim, and before I got really into props and Sim. And I would argue that props and Sim is a lot better than top tier. Like, the number of players that you have that are reasonably competent vastly outnumbers the ones that are brand new. And that's the problem with top tiers. You are fighting in a sandbox that is basically full of dog shit, and everything that surrounds top tier, especially the popular opinions, are hot fucking dog shit. Anyways, that's my TED Talk. Like and subscribe.
Включено воздушное торможение. Включено воздушное торможение.